if your cortisol is not regulated, nothing's going to be regulated. And I've seen it time and time again. And I worked at a practice very early on in my career that taught me that. And I'm so grateful because that really truly is the foundation to like all of the hormone cascade.
Before we get into today's episode, I want to make sure you subscribe to this YouTube channel. Also, if you don't want to miss any content that's being dropped, make sure you hit that notification bell as well. I also want to know who are the people you want to hear from on this show and what topics would you like me to continue to cover. Thank you so much for your continued support. Now, let's get into the episode. Welcome to the Mindset Mirror Connection podcast, the podcast where we debunk the eat less, move more, shrink more mentality and focus on what really matters, which is your beliefs with yourself, your body, and your food. I'm your host, Christina Hathaway, licensed therapist with specialized training in food and body obsession, certified personal trainer, and certified nutrition coach. And in today's episode, I have Dr. Jordan Trapp here talking about hormone therapy and testing 101. So if you're wondering, where do I even start? What do I even do? This is the episode for you. Because here at the Mindset Mirror Connection, we believe what you say in your mind, you see in the mirror. So let's have a discussion about that. What's up, guys? Welcome back to another episode of Mindset Mirror Connection podcast. We've got someone in studio. Dr. Jordan Trapp is here. You know her. You love her. We love her. I love her. And we're going to talk all things hormones and hormone testing.
My favorite topic.
Yes, but before then, we're going to banter. We're just going to talk about our lives and shit and dogs and getting run off the road. So why don't you tell everyone what just happened to you? Share it with the people. Inquiring minds want to know.
So I'm driving here and it's a 10-minute drive. It's not very far.
Right. And also, I don't live in like the hood. So
none of us live in
it's just if you do.
I'm driving here on a 3-lane road. I'm in the middle lane. The guy in front of me is going like 20 miles per hour. And I'm like, okay, well, I'm going to go around you, go around him. And then he starts merging over into me. So I honk my horn so I don't get my car hit.
Yeah.
Starts rolling down his window, screaming at me, flipping me off. Like it was my fault that he didn't see me. And I'm like, oh my God, I don't know what to do. So I'm like tapping my brakes so he can merge over. And he just keeps tapping his brakes with me and running me further and further into the curb. And I was like, I don't know what I'm supposed to do right now. And I thought I heard the front of my car crunch. And I was like, but I don't want to be.
You're not going to know.
This guy.
No.
So I just backed off a lot and then took a couple pictures of his license plate in case anything else.
Yeah, he followed her from my house.
He got behind me, pulled into this like suicide lane, got behind me, and then continued to follow me. And instead of calling the police, I called Christina.
And I was on a call, and whenever I'm on a call, I have do not disturb. So she's at my house. She's like, where were you?
So, in hindsight, I probably should have called the police.
Yeah,
but
these fucking people, man. I heard that there are literally people who will like make you get out of your car. So they'll have someone get in front of you, pump their brakes, you'll hit them. So then you get out of your car and they will like either someone will be in the car behind you or that person will like take you and snatch you. You know what? Listen.
Good way to get human traffic.
Correct. I listen to a lot. I watch a lot of Dateline. I listen true crime. Yep. My new true crime podcast is called Serialistly. Serialistly. Correct. It's the best.
Sword and Scale is still mine. And Morbid. Shout out to the Morbid girlies.
Love. I've not listened to you, but I have listened to Sword and Scale. It's a little more
morbid.
Which is wild. A little dark and gloomy. And I'm like, at least with her name is Annie Elise. Like she'll pop off. She'll be like, this fucking guy. Like,
oh yeah, that's how the Morbid girls are.
Yeah,
you would love them.
We need that. We need that. For me, where are we at today? Let's see.
Friday.
I'm going to Mexico. I've already talked about that, but that was yesterday. I had to get all the dog shots. Oh, wait, shit. I don't know if we have their shots. I don't know if we have Harlem's rabies shot. And I just realized it's Friday and I need it for tomorrow. So wish me luck, everyone.
Call the people.
Yeah, because I have her shot records, but I didn't see it on there. But then when I called them, they didn't say that they didn't have it. So I'm like.
Is it for grooming?
No, for crossing the border with the dogs.
Oh.
Yeah.
I didn't know you had to do that.
They have to have the rabies shots to cross the border. Plus, there's a lot of dogs just roaming the streets of Rocky Point. Where we're at, though, is like way off from anyone. So there's never any loose dogs, but I need to do that. I just realized it.
I'll
Shit.
remind you.
Yeah.
Actually, I probably won't.
No, I'm going to, you know who's going to remind? Someone is Mark Hathaway is going to remind. Let me tell you about this guy.
He's great. He's the best.
Listen, I was thinking about this morning.
Mama hat, daddy hat.
Yes,
My
that's
adopted mom and dad.
Yes. And this week has been absolutely insane with transitioning people and just business. And he picked up the pieces, man. He got the Costco order, the Walmart order. You saw him, he's already putting things out.
I got here. He's bringing in all of the stuff from the Walmart.
Listen, get you a Mark
delivery
Hathaway.
vans. Yep.
Get you a Mark Hathaway. And how do you do that? You do your own healing so that you don't show up like a lunatic like you would have previously before healing. And yeah, we're there.
Yeah.
You're getting there.
We're getting there.
Yay.
No
So-
more lunaticking. We're there.
And if she does, when she comes on next time, we'll get to hear all about it. So speaking of lunaticking, oftentimes when your hormones are changing, damn, you
Good
like that? Thank
transition.
you.
Good
Thank you.
transition.
You feel like a lunatic.
Yeah.
I had a therapy appointment this morning and we were talking about the new program I'm launching. And she and I were speaking because obviously we're both therapists of that. There's literally no training for therapists
Mm-mm.
on that like sudden onset of mood, like irritability and depression and anxiety and all of those things, which is a totally different conversation to have. But for a lot of women, that's the first sign that hormones are changing.
Yeah. And a lot of women don't know that either. So they're expecting the hot flashes, the night sweats, the vaginal dryness. And they're like, well, I don't know why my mood take.
Right.
And they're like, I'm anxious, I'm depressed. People get kind of worried because they're kind of snapping at their partners or their kids a lot. And I'm like, well, it's not your fault, but we could fix it.
It's data, right? Well, no, and I think that's important for everyone listening, especially if it's, I won't say all of a sudden, but like a sudden onset and it wasn't there before.
Yeah.
You know?
Mhm.
And you're right. And I just had this perimenopause playbook that I recorded and I spoke about that, how we really should know. And that's why we're doing this kind of 101, like what should we expect and how, because I'm guessing that the sooner that you can get on like a hormone replacement,
Mhm.
the better. I know for me, being that because my hysterectomy and this kind of push into perimenopause, at least, again, that's what the testing showed, that the sooner you go in to perimenopause, the more likely things, even like dementia and is it Alzheimer's
Yeah.
too, is more likely.
Correct.
So I think it's important for people to understand what hormone replacement is because there's a lot of positives, obviously.
Sure.
I want people to leave being able to go into a traditional provider if they don't have access to someone like yourself and say, this is what I want. And these are the tests I want, and helping them understand why those tests are important. Now, let me ask you, is there like one test that's going to be like, you're in perimenopause?
No. So what we end up tracking as far as tracking into perimenopause, menopause is FSH and LH.
Mhm.
And those are going to be signals from up in the pituitary gland to the ovaries that we need estrogen and progesterone.
Mhm.
The higher those guys go, the more your body needs it, the less hormone that's being produced. So
Gotcha.
the higher those numbers go, the more we're seeing you go into menopause.
Mhm.
But those numbers don't necessarily always match what's happening with the female body. So I have patients who have a high FSH and LH and are still cycling.
Thank you.
Yeah.
So my client, her doctor literally said that. She said, oh, well, you're having a period. You cannot possibly be in perimenopause. And her period is the same. So it's like the same, like 28, 30-day cycle. However, on my check-ins, I actually ask them, like, are you experiencing? And I go through the symptoms, and every single check-in is like, ba, 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 ba.
Yeah, she's in perimenopause.
I know you're listening, so let's talk to
That's,
Trapp.
I think, the biggest difference between probably the conventional side and the naturopathic, functional, integrative. We have a million names nowadays.
The better side.
Is we treat a person, we don't treat the labs.
Right.
So I'm going to listen to what you're telling me while also looking at your labs. But yes, if you're having a menstrual cycle, it does not necessarily mean that you are not in perimenopause.
Right.
That's the whole name of perimenopause. You're almost to menopause.
Right.
Things could still look normal as far as the cycle goes.
Yeah, it's nuts. Luckily, we're working together and we have a trusting relationship because she's had trouble even just like losing weight. She's an absolute badass. You know, she strength trains, she's hitting her protein targets. Her stress is a bit high, so that's another thing that I want to look at. That we've finally gotten the conversation, like, let's try to get some testing, whether it's through like a provider like you or something, that we can do, send to her home just to get an idea.
Yeah.
Because her doctor's not helping her. But that is so common. It's so common. And with traditional medicine, I understand that there's not even a converse, even in OBGYN, right? There's not a conversation.
Typically, until you cease bleeding for, I think 6 months is their cutoff, they're not going to give you any hormone therapy.
Oh, wow.
Where we're kind of the, as soon as you start having symptoms, I'm going to put you on hormone replacement therapy. Data nowadays is showing that the closer you initiate to someone actually going into menopause, the better for the outcome overall.
Right.
I have women that are starting to get the antsy, progesterone dropping, anxiety feeling, and I put them on progesterone before I ever introduce estrogen, just because their body's still producing it. They don't need it yet. So it really just depends patient to patient, and that's why it's so important to go to someone who actually understands what they're talking about and what they're doing, because it is a lot easier to transition into menopause once you have those hormones in your body.
Talk about too the protective properties around that, because like I said, like I don't bleed, I don't have a uterus, so for me just being put on estrogen is going to be different for someone who has a uterus. But like I said, being early in this phase, what are the benefits of going on? And I don't know if you want to do each one or whatever. You just do your thing.
Progesterone is naturally the first hormone that starts to drop down when we're entering into menopause. So that's why most women will start to feel a little bit moody, a little bit angsty. That creeping in of anxiety is normally the first sign that I get that they're starting to drop down. Adding in progesterone is going to help overall kind of calm the nervous system. It binds to the GABA receptors up in the brain, calms down the body overall, so it'll decrease anxiety. Insomnia is a huge problem with our perimenopause, menopause patients. I have had patients message me after their first night of going on progesterone orally, and they're like, "Oh my God, thank you so much. You are my life."
Yeah. Isn't that wonderful? It's like so easy. You're like, yay.
Like,
Yeah.
I love it. So progesterone from a symptom standpoint is going to cover all of that. As far as a protective standpoint for progesterone, micronized progesterone in particular, you need to be very careful about what progesterone you're getting if you're not getting it from someone who practices functionally. Micronized progesterone matches exactly what your body was making prior to going into menopause, so it's not going to give us any pause for concern as far as breast cancers.
Gotcha.
So when given in that form, it's actually been shown to have a positive impact as far as breast cancer goes, because it's protective against estrogen in the body.
Gotcha. Love that.
From an estrogen standpoint, as we start to see that estrogen drop, obviously we have the symptoms that everyone knows, the hot flashes, the night sweats, vaginal dryness is probably one of the bigger concerns that people have, because there's so many other concerns that come along with that. Increased UTIs is one of those, and it's just because you lose all of the mucosal barrier, basically, so you're not able to fight off the bacteria going up to the urethra.
Pain with sex.
Pain with sex is a big one. Not having the elasticity anymore. We have bladder changes as well, so people are peeing more often, more frequently. It's waking them up at night.
It's a problem.
And then outside of that, estrogen is very protective for the heart. It's very good for the cholesterol panel. That's kind of a negative feedback loop. So your hormones are the basis for all of your cholesterol levels.
Cholesterol is the basis for all your hormone levels.
Yeah, go back.
Cut that, Ira. Cut that, Ira. Or keep it in. I was like, I'm going. I got you.
So cholesterol is going to be the basis for all of your hormones. So when you think about that from a negative feedback loop, if you're not creating the hormones anymore, your body's going to be like, oh, I'm going to produce more cholesterol. That way I can make more hormone, even though it's not being produced. So naturally, our cholesterol levels are going to start to rise when we enter into menopause.
But so I've never put the two together, because I understand that cholesterol makes hormones, but I never thought about, well, what happens when, because again, it's that feedback loop. The body's like, I'm just trying to do what I've always been doing.
To do.
Yeah, exactly. And that I'm thinking about another client. She's like, it's so weird. You know, my cholesterol has gone up. And luckily I know that that is a symptom, but I never actually put together like why that happens. That's very interesting.
Just that negative feedback. So protective for the cardiovascular system. Estrogen is going to be super beneficial for the brain as well. So preventative in dementia, Alzheimer's. The big one is bone density.
I interrupt this episode to bring this month's comment contest. This month, I am giving away a 5-product bundle for Legion Athletic products. Legion is by far my favorite supplement line, as they don't have a bunch of junk in their products. Plus, like, their protein powder is by far the best tasting on the market. All you have to do is drop a positive comment under this video, maybe a question about the topic at hand, maybe how you relate to the episode. Then you will be put in a drawing for this amazing package that I will draw a name at the end of the month and announce on the show. Now, back to the episode.
I read an alarming statistic the other day that once you enter into menopause, if you get a hip fracture, your time for living after that is usually about 8 to 10 years.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
Bone density is a big one as well. And then testosterone, of course, is going to protect muscle and bones. Testosterone's not one of those ones that's necessary for females, but does have a huge impact on quality of life.
Oh, I'm sure. Dr. Gabrielle Lyons is a big proponent on testosterone. I was on a webinar or like a seminar with her, and she was talking all about it. And well, that helps you with libido.
100.
Yeah. The reason I asked is I had a client go on and I was like, tell your husband he's welcome. Like, you're welcome.
I have patients' husbands come in with them and be like, thank you so much. I think you saved our marriage. And I'm like, nope, that was the testosterone.
But I just help influence. No, it's true. And we see divorce increase at this time of in midlife. We see suicide increase at midlife. And there's studies that show adding estrogen replacement over an SSRI will help with managing a lot of those symptoms. Now, obviously, explain if you have a uterus or you don't, because people are going to look at like the WHI and be like,
yes. So I'll talk about WHI too. But so if you have a uterus and we give you just estrogen, the chance of your uterine lining becoming thicker or getting any cancers, uterine cancers, anything like that becomes higher if we're not giving it with progesterone. So if you are seeing a doctor who is giving you like an estradiol patch without progesterone and you have a uterus, I highly, highly, highly encourage you to talk to them about getting on progesterone or go see another provider, truthfully, just because it puts you at an unsafe disadvantage. So that's the biggest difference with uterine to not uterine. But I honestly will not give estrogen without progesterone typically.
Interesting.
They just balance each other really well. And I see no disadvantage to adding in progesterone unless it's a special case, like someone had a progesterone positive breast cancer or something. Obviously, we're not going to give
right. We are doing no harm. Number one. First rule. Therapists and doctors. Thank God. You may not think that, but it is supposed to be.
Yeah.
Interesting. So I think for people to understand, like when the hypothalamus, right, is saying, hey, need estrogen, right? And estrogen's not being pumped. It's just starting to like pump more and more and more. Like you said, and that lining is thickening. The progesterone then helps to
keep it thin.
Got it.
Yep. It kind of just protects the whole uterine lining. Same thing when you're pregnant. Progesterone protects baby and it protects the uterus.
So cool.
Yeah.
So cool. So a lot of people will hear that. And like you said, what you just described has been a counter argument to the Women's Health Initiative of 2002, right?
2002.
Yep. It was supposed to go for 10 years, 5 years. And they were like, wait a minute, everyone's getting this cancer. It's not funny.
That was also not true.
Correct.
There was a very, very small percentage that was getting anything wrong.
Right. And that simply was because the women who were getting estrogen only were dealing with, basically their bodies were doing exactly what we just said, right?
So that study in particular, there was a bunch of different branches off of that study. They were looking at estrogen-only therapy, estrogen and progesterone therapy, estrogen and progestin therapy. That particular arm of the study that showed the increase for breast cancer, stroke, cardiovascular disease was in one specific arm, and it was one specific estrogen. It was a synthetic estrogen and a synthetic progestin. The synthetic progestins have been shown to increase the possibility of breast cancer. The estrogen that they were giving in that arm was something called Premarin, which is a synthetic estrogen on the market right now still, which is shocking.
Is that the
to me.
horse?
Yeah, it stands for Premarin.
Premature
It's
mare.
mare urine. It's mare urine. So
there you go.
it's made from a pregnant horse's urine, basically.
Gotcha.
Horses hold, like, I think 17 different estrogens. We have 3 recent studies are showing 4. They just found another one.
Look at us.
Yeah,
Winners.
growing. But if you think about that from a just logical standpoint, then you have this like 13 urine or 13 estrogens running around that our body didn't know how to metabolize.
Right.
And something that was already pushing towards breast cancer. So it was the combination of the 2 of those specifically that was cause for concern. But that study was actually funded by the creator of Premarin. So when that arm started showing negative side effects, they were like, nope, shut it down.
Yeah.
Abort mission.
Bad publicity.
Yes. So the WHI did scare so many people. I think most people, if you do your research on your own at this point, will see that the most recent studies, when hormone replacement therapy is done correctly, and there is an incorrect way to do it, is more protective, more beneficial, will increase quality of life.
Yeah, absolutely. I was at a webinar with Dr. Mary Claire Haber, and there were women in the room in their 70s and 80s, and that was all of their questions because those hormones were taken away from them, and they did not want. They were like, I felt great. And then they're taking it away from me. I believe it was 80% of all hormone therapies stopped. 80% in this country.
A lot of fear in people, doctors included. So, of course, the conventional side just listens without doing their own research. No hate to the conventional side. I just want you guys to know
there's
100
good people out there.
100% a time and place for the conventional practice. I've worked in that field for a long time as well. But they don't do their own research, and then it just kind of all flew off the handles. And we're still, unfortunately, picking up the pieces today. I have plenty of patients that come in after I recommend HRT, and they're like, my GP said I can't do it because it causes cancer. And I'm like, never mind. I can't have this conversation.
Yeah. Like, well, what was my question would be, okay, well, what was their recommendation then?
At some point, I just stopped fighting back. If you want to listen to your GP, I don't know why you're paying to see me then.
Correct.
It's totally fine. We're just probably not a good fit.
Yeah, no, I would ask them. I say, okay, well, what was their recommendation? And usually it's going to be like, you'll just get through it.
That or an estradiol patch, which is hormone.
Correct. You know what's funny about that? Okay, so I heard, and maybe you can help me with this, that birth control has more hormones than what we prescribe for hormone replacement, but we're like cool with.
I don't actually know the numbers of what is in a birth control, and I should. So thank you for bringing that to my attention. But yes, it does have hormone. Most of them will have estrogen and progesterone. That's why when we pull it out, there's usually a pretty bad rebound phase, which I always warn my patients about. But it basically mimics your body's menstrual cycle. It's not giving you a menstrual cycle. It's not. You're not ovulating. Yeah, you're not ovulating. Your body's just shedding it because it has to. So, yeah, I don't actually know the side by side of that, but that would be great to know.
Yeah, no, I don't remember. It was on TikTok, so obviously it was.
GPT.
Yeah, it was on TikTok, so it was obviously right.
That's where I get all of my medical advice.
Yes, I'm basically a doctor too. Okay, so let's then talk about what types of hormone therapy, because we talked about a patch. What else is out there in the world?
So typically for me, I use compounded hormones. So we'll start there. Everything's going to match what's in your body. I don't use any of the synthetic.
Would that be bio-individual?
Yeah, so it's bioidentical.
Thank
So
you, identical.
biased is going to be a mix of estriol and estradiol. It kind of gets rid of the bad estrogen, estrone. There is a triest on the market that some people like. I personally don't prescribe it.
Okay.
You want me to explain why estrone is the bad estrogen?
Yes, I do. Thank you.
So we as females have 3 different estrogens. We have estradiol, which is most prominent in our reproductive years. Estriol, we only have really when we're pregnant, and estrone. And there's the 4th one that I can't think of right now, but he's new.
She knew.
She's new. Estrone is kind of the problematic estrogen because it can break down 3 different pathways. One of those is protective. It takes all of the excess estrogen, funnels it to the liver, methylates it, pushes it out of the body. So you don't have any excess estrogen hanging out. One of those pathways is called the 4-OH pathway. That one can cause DNA damage and potentially cancers in the future. And then there's a 16-OH pathway, which is all of our PCOS, PMDD, fibroid, endometriosis type patients.
That's
so,
me.
Yes, me too.
Yay.
Yay, Alex.
Okay, we win.
I've only had to go under the knife like 3 times at this point.
Yeah, Jesus. And you're what? 12 years younger than me. And I've had 2. And the last one was like, I'll just take it.
Like, you can just take my uterus.
Yeah.
I'm sure I can't have kids anyways after this treatment.
Yes. So
anyways, estrone is something that I prefer to keep out of all of my patients' hormones. So bias, which I use, has estriol and estrone. I'm sorry, estradiol and estradiol. Progesterone is in there too, and then testosterone. I typically will start all of my patients on a cream. 2 clicks twice a day, typically to the vaginal canal, which people sometimes hate, but it's the best place for it to absorb. I do that for about 30 to 60 days. The reason I choose a cream first is it's easier for us to adjust. So if anyone gets breast tenderness, that's usually the sign that either there's too much estrogen or too little progesterone. So I can have them decrease it down. So I'm not putting them at any risk for anything.
Right, because the other options I've heard of, like pellets, and there's no control there.
There's no.
And a lot of people don't like pellets.
So I don't like them for females. For me, it's very difficult. You go through like a 6-month to a year process of trying to figure out when they're dipping down.
Oh, wow.
And it can hit females pretty hard. So a lot of them will feel the drop of testosterone and progesterone very quickly. But if I rerun your blood work and your progesterone levels are still high, but your estrogen's low and your testosterone's low, guess what? You have to wait till the progesterone funnels out.
Oh my gosh.
So I don't particularly like it for females. For men, if they're just looking for their hit of testosterone, sure, I'll put a pellet in you.
Oh, I didn't know. I didn't even think men did that.
They do.
Hey, go talk to Mark.
Men do great on testosterone.
Go put a pellet in Mark. Just walk up and
stick it in.
Yeah. It's fine.
But no, I don't love pellet therapy. I do know providers that swear by it, and I know patients that swear by it too. So it really is just dependent on who you chat with. Most of my patients end up on an oral troche. So what that is just a small little dissolvable tablet. Once I get the dosing to where I'm comfortable with it, I can switch them over to that to get them off the cream. Some people choose to stay on the cream.
Nice.
Troche, there is a capsule form. I don't love the capsule form because you still have to go through the whole digestive system. So you have to go through the liver detox. You get it broken down in the gut. So you're probably going to have to go on a higher dose of hormone than you would if we were doing it through a mucosal membrane. And then we have injections for testosterone. But yeah, those are typically the forms that I use.
Yeah.
There is the patches, but again, I don't love them. If someone's on an estradiol patch and they want progesterone, I'll give them just an oral progesterone.
Gotcha. It'd probably just be easier to do both.
Yeah.
Orally.
That's kind of gotten to.
Gotcha. Okay. So we'll use my client whose doctor is saying, no, you have a period, it's fine. And she says, absolutely not. I want you to test these things for me. Now, obviously, this is a general doctor, primary care physician. What testing, again, we don't have one, but what could be helpful in her getting more data, whether it's with that doctor or when people are coming into you? Well, let me ask you a question. would a general doctor do the same testing that you would do? Okay, let's start with a general doctor and then we'll go to you.
Okay.
Okay. So what testing could they do with just a primary care
Primary
provider?
care doctor, you're going to want to get a full hormone panel. So FSH and LH, total estrogen, progesterone, and testosterone is typically what they'll agree to run, and it's the bare minimum.
Right.
So absolutely get one of those. Whether they know how to decipher that, I don't know, to be honest.
Right.
And most of them will probably refer you to OB-GYN.
Mm-hmm.
So
Who
those
also
are
don't always have
any answers.
specialties. I mean, this is, so I was speaking to one of my clients who's an OB and OB-GYN, and she was talking about, she goes, I want to do more education around this because it wasn't taught to her.
I would be happy to chat with her.
Yeah, she's amazing. I love her. Hi.
But those are the basics that you're going to want to get just to see if you are in menopause. They'll run a TSH on you, so you'll be able to kind of see your thyroid. And if they're able to, absolutely get a cortisol level, because you're going to want to, and a DHEA. They won't order that. Just go to your naturopath.
But if they can. Yes.
What you're going to ask for is a AM cortisol, a DHEA, a full hormone panel, and a TSH.
And then obviously like a general blood panel, like lipid
CBC,
panel.
CMP, and lipid panel are what they typically run. Yeah,
perfect. So that's for your primary. How do you differ? What magic do you have?
We function just as a whole person. I'm not gonna break it down into your sex hormones and take them away from the other hormone cascades. So when you see me, your first visit is going to be very comprehensive. We're going to go through all of your symptom picture, kind of see where we need to wiggle and tweak things. Again, for most of my menopause patients, that's that they are going to bite their husband's head off and they don't want to have sex. So,
real quick, I have to say something funny. And I already said this to the audience, but I have to say it to you. So I'm doing continuing ed for my therapy license.
Okay.
And the one of the trainings that I could find for a therapist was from 2000. It was a 2002 to 2010 training. And that was the reason why people had mood changes, because they couldn't have sex with their husbands, which then caused them insecurities that their husbands would leave them. And that is why their mood was so out of whack.
That's wild.
Wild. 2010. Anyway, I gave him
that's insane
scathing evaluation. So I'm like, this is so out of date.
Make this better.
Yes. So finally I found another one, and her information was up to date, but I think she was on something. I was like,
what was her
or
name?
Maybe I'll tell you later. I don't remember, but I was like, maybe she had a speech something, but it was like she was in La La Land. Like she kept like dissociating. I'm like, maybe you're not
like that.
Okay. Anyway, sorry. Go ahead. What were we talking about?
So the biggest testing.
Got it.
As far as the hormone goes, and there's so many things that impact your overall hormonal health. Inflammation, immune function are going to be two that people don't really think of. So what I do up for a first kind of workup is I do the basics. I do the CBC, the CMP, I do a lipid panel. And that's where everything changes. From there, I do a full deep dive into your hormones. So I'll look at AM cortisol. I'll look at a DHEA. DHEA, for those of you who don't know, is made in your adrenal gland, but it's the precursor to your testosterone. So it gives us kind of a look and a tie back between the two. I'll do the full hormone panel. I do a full thyroid, TSH, free T3, free T4, thyroid antibodies, and a reverse T3. And then inflammation markers, a CRP, a ESR, and a homocysteine to make sure that methylation is working properly, which is part of your estrogen detox pathways. I'm sure I'm forgetting something, but that's kind of where things differ, is we recognize that the entire hormone cascade functions as one, not just separate entities. So your thyroid is going to affect your sex hormones is going to affect your thyroid. All of it ties in together.
Well, I say this all the time because the nervous system, I think the nervous system, digestive system, endocrine system, and immune system are one big system.
Yep.
And they all work with each other, but we have these different, specialists that focus on nervous system therapists specifically. Then you have endocrinologists and people who do the guts and the guts. When really, I mean, and then they don't see it as one system where cortisol could be so high because we're just constantly stressed out. And then that
Yeah. I
cascades
mean,
into
I've
other
had
symptoms.
patients who I get them as much testosterone as they want and they still feel like garbage. And I'm like, girl, I don't know what to tell you. It's your stress levels. Your
Mm-hmm.
cortisol is running around at 25. Like I can't combat that.
I was just listening to a podcast and she said the same
Yeah.
thing. She was a beach body instructor
Hmm.
and was doing all the
Yeah.
classes and everything and traveling and this, and she was on hormone therapy,
Hmm.
and her doctor's like, listen,
I've
if
done my job. You need to do
yeah, you
yours.
gotta calm your shit down. And she like moved into, now I don't love what she moved into, but she moved into like Pilates.
Hmm.
And then she did strength too, but it
Yeah.
was kind of like Pilates, very slow. But she said the same exact thing.
Yeah, it's hard, and that's unfortunately a conversation that I end up having quite often with moms. Um,
Mm-hmm.
Moms are superhumans as
Yes.
far as I'm concerned.
Absolutely.
Y'all take care of everyone else before yourself, and
Mm-hmm.
unfortunately, it does end up showing in your blood work.
Mm-hmm.
So I've had to have many conversations where it's like, look, your blood is pristine,
Yeah.
except your cortisol's too high. So the fact that you don't feel good could really only be tied back to
Yeah.
one thing.
Right. Well, and that's why for me, being able to bring to the table, okay, let's do some nervous system
Hmm.
regulation. And a part of that, a lot of people would just say, breathe, self-care. I had this conversation with a client yesterday. She goes, you before I started working with you, I thought nervous system regulation or just regulating my body was bubble baths. And I'm like, no,
Yeah.
no.
You're literally rewiring your brain.
Right,
Yeah.
exactly. And a part of that too is understanding why I say yes to everyone and
Hmm.
what does saying no, how does that affect who I believe I am?
Hmm.
Because if you have a belief that you're not good enough if you set boundaries, that's a saying no is going to feel so wrong that you'll eventually come back
That's
to it.
actually something that I have dealt with, and you've helped me deal with this tremendously. But probably in the last 2 years, probably ever since I got diagnosed with cancer,
Mm-hmm.
for those of you that don't know, I have leukemia.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I thought that my worth was in helping others, and I very, very often would put aside how I was feeling or how what I
Mm-hmm.
needed to get done to help other people. And, you know, I'm not happy I got cancer, but thank God for it
Mm-hmm.
because it forced me to really sit down and evaluate what was important. And that's me. Like, I'm
Right.
important. I need to be number one priority in my life if I want to be able to make the impact on other people's lives that I have.
Right, exactly. And when you do make yourself a priority, you realize like, wow, not only is everyone okay,
Yeah.
but I'm more efficient.
Hmm.
I'm just nicer.
Yep.
I'm having better experience with the people or the situations I'm in.
Right.
And a lot of women are so scared of doing that. And again, it's at an expense to the self, your health, your mental health,
Right.
your hormones.
Oh, 100%. And
Mm.
I am saying this so people understand if you set boundaries and someone continuously walks over them, walk away because it is
Correct.
100% not worth it. I have been in that situation before, actually multiple times, and I've finally gotten to a point where I'm like, okay, well, you're not going to get what I'm saying, and I'm just going to remove myself from you because it's not good for me.
Absolutely. So with I'm working on the new cohort, the mindset of menopause, and that's a big part of it
Hmm.
is number one. So the mental health side is the changes in your body image.
Hmm.
I was speaking on another podcast, and she is in her late 50s, I believe. She's amazing. Carol Covino is her name. And she was talking about how uh, maybe she was older. She said, maybe 60. She said, now at this age, I'm thinking, wow, I don't have a lot of time left. And it made me think about, and I asked her, I go, that's interesting. I'm
That gave me
wondering,
chills.
yeah, but she also at the same breath was talking about her struggles with body image her whole life. And I'm like, I wonder if there's this grief process of, wow, I don't have a lot of time left. And the time that I've had,
Worried about such dumb ass shit.
shit. Yes. And she said, yeah, it was like just, we were just riffing and it had nothing to do with what we're talking about. But she said, yeah, there is this kind of grief of like, why have I been doing
For
this to
sure.
myself, you know? So that aspect of it, there's an entire conversation on boundaries, right? And choosing yourself. And what I love about the menopause transition, a lot of women do look at it as a negative. That in itself will cause more emotional damage than if we can have a better perspective. And that perspective being like, this is like an opportunity, like a to turn a new leaf, to be a new you, to be whatever the fuck you want to be,
Yeah.
right? Because you have lived your life for everyone else. So let's look at what it looks like to live for you. Right. And there's that boundaries. And then also, of course, as we talked about, like managing and regulating your stress and then giving them the skills with the nutrition and the exercise.
I will hang my hat every single time on if your cortisol is not regulated, nothing's going to be regulated. And I've seen it time and time again. And I worked at a practice very early on in my career that taught me that. And I'm so grateful because that really truly is the foundation to like all of the hormone cascade, adrenal, sex hormones, thyroid hormones.
Real quick, I want to hear from your perspective, the cortisol steal.
Correct. So what the cortisol steal is, basically all of our hormones come from one mother hormone, pregnenolone. Cortisol, people don't know it, but it's a hormone.
Right.
So if your body's using most of your pregnenolone to then create cortisol because you're constantly needing it to keep yourself moving forward, it steals from the rest of the hormones, mainly progesterone. So you end up in a progesterone deficient state, which ends up putting people in an estrogen dominant state.
Is that what's happening to me? I need to come get
You should probably
cortisol.
just come see me.
I will. No, I'm going to, promise. No, because I sent her my labs and she's like, you're estrogen dominant. And I was like, oh shit, what's happening?
But that's also age related. Progesterone's going to drop down first.
Oh yeah, you did say that too. Okay, I'm fully fine. I'm totally at peace, guys.
Okay.
Yeah.
We're doing fine.
Everything's fine. It's like the little girl with the like fire in the background. Everything's fine. See, we struggle too. So
check on the people that take care of you guys.
Correct. And the funny thing is I love majority of the people that work with me are medical providers, you know, caretakers. Yep. So we need help too. They're here and we love you. What else? Anything else? So we talked about types of hormones. We've talked about testing.
Oh, Dutch testing I want to touch on.
Yeah.
So a Dutch test. Dutch test is kind of the deep dive into all of your hormones. It's going to tell me how your body's making them, how your body's metabolizing them, and how it's excreting them. This test is super important for both reproductive age women and people who are on hormone replacement therapy because we want to see how your hormones are breaking down. Mainly, I use this for women that come in and have really heavy menstrual cycles, have fibroids, have PCOS, because it does show me that breakdown of the estrogen. I wish I would have brought a picture to show you guys, but
you can send it and then we can put it right here.
Great. Yeah, we'll do it.
Put it right here, Ira.
So it basically shows me what your 24-hour cortisol curve looks like, how your body's producing DHEA. I'm trying to envision it in my head, and how your body's metabolizing all of that because cortisol. On the next page, it's a full breakdown of progesterone, your androgens, which are DHEA and testosterone, and then your estrogens. So it's going to show me progesterone breakdown, if there's an imbalance between your progesterone and estrogen, and then it's going to show me how much estriol, estrone, and estradiol you're producing. We want to have more estradiol than estrone, but naturally as we enter into menopause, estrone becomes higher.
Gotcha.
But for my non-menopausal patients, that's helpful because then we know which pathway we need to stop to get you to stop producing excess estrogen or balance out the progesterone. For my menopausal woman on HRT, for a safety factor, I can see how your body's breaking down the estrogen that I'm giving to you.
Gotcha.
Or if any of it's turning into estrone.
Why is there such beef on this Dutch test?
I have no idea.
People are like, I don't like Dutch tests. And I think that, like, when I see them, when I see them, like, this is great. Like,
yeah, I absolutely.
It's like a one-stop shop.
I will die on that hill. Dutch test is amazing.
Yeah, I want to do that.
There's another portion of it that shows basically how your circadian rhythm is working. If you're getting a peak of cortisol at night, your melatonin's low in the morning. So yeah.
You'll be happy to know I stopped taking melatonin. Everyone, I stopped taking melatonin. I forgot to tell you guys that.
I take a lot of melatonin.
Yeah. Well, I was taking 24 milligrams.
I take 15, but your girl has insomnia.
Yeah.
So I don't know.
Yeah, we need to do some EMDR. or some
Let me get
ketamine.
through
Do you want to do
cancer
ketamine?
treatment first.
Oh yeah. Yeah. Get through cancer treatment, then we'll get you on ketamine.
Yeah. But yes, Dutch test is a great way to just see how everything's breaking down. And either we'll put it up here or I'll bring a copy of it next time I'm here and we can go
I don't
through
know
what
how to
that would
do
be.
that. Oh no, I do. Oh yeah. Oh,
We
I can
can
do
just,
that.
yeah.
Yeah, I'll do it like I do
Oh
here.
my God, I have my computer here. I could
Yeah,
have just
it's
put it
okay.
up there.
We'll figure it.
Anyways,
Yeah.
but yes, blood testing is going to be beneficial to getting you on HRT, making sure that you're actually in menopause. That's good for seeing how well you're balanced once you're on HRT. Dutch test is just kind of a further jump into the rabbit hole.
I like that you did explain too for women who are still menstruating or are premenopausal that that's also something they should take advantage of, and I don't think they do.
100%.
What's the earliest you think someone should get a Dutch test, for example? Like what age?
Depends on the patient. So I've had 17-year-olds do it, and that's just because we're in an age, fortunately, where people are trying to stay away from birth control as a
The end
Band-Aid.
all be all for
So they're
everything
fixing their
women.
hormones rather than going on birth control.
Right.
But yeah, I really don't have an age limit on when I will run one.
I think, getting it early and getting it as often as you can, then once you do start having changes as you get older, you have all this data.
Correct.
You
And
know.
it's just, I'll use a patient, for instance. She's 23, I believe. She's very young. I was mortified when I heard this story, but she had terrible fibroids and endometriosis, very traumatic childhood, which is a whole nother thing. Typically, traumatic childhoods will lead to a PCOS, estrogen dominant type picture. The OB-GYN that she saw was a male, and no hate to male OB-GYNs, but his answer was take out her uterus. Yep.
What?
And she didn't get a second opinion. Mom was like, that's what the doctor said. That's what you're going to do. And she is super young without a uterus now, creating,
Poor baby.
So it's a very beneficial way for us to be able to treat things adequately and actually get to the root of what's going on rather than sticking a birth control band-aid or pulling out a uterus when we don't have to. And yeah.
Let me ask you a question. So this is for a specific client. She was in perimenopause, but decided to have a kiddo. Went through IVF, had the kiddo. Now postpartum and perimenopausal.
Same thing. It's all going to tie back to balancing out the hormones.
She doesn't want to go on hormones just yet because she's just been pumped with hormones and IVF. Yeah.
Yeah. Usually about 6 months is what it's going to look like to get all of that out of your system. So I would say 6 months is when you'll want to do a Dutch test, see how everything's breaking down. You can do blood work right now just to see where there's imbalances and kind of shift it from that perspective. But yeah, about 6 months is when she's going to want to start kind of looking and seeing what next steps are.
She just did hormone testing. And they're going to focus on, I don't believe it was a Dutch test though. They're going to focus on just more like supplementing and then what we can do nutritionally. Cause she's like, listen, I don't want to, can I just have a break for a second?
100%.
That's very common now. Very common where women in their late 30s, early 40s are having kids.
I don't know who I was talking to, but I'm 30. I'm unpartnered. My best friend's 30, unpartnered. More and more, it sounds like that's the route that people are going. And we're like, well, we're probably going to miss our opportunity to have kids. And we're like, no, people are having kids well into their 40s nowadays. So
you can get your eggs frozen.
Yeah, that's actually my next step.
Yeah.
Once I get off treatment, I think I need 6 months of no treatment, and then
you can have my like leftovers.
Great.
Like
Thanks so much.
You're welcome. They're wonderful.
I'll have a Hathaway baby.
Yeah. You'll have a Jimenez baby. You'll have a Hispanic baby, not a Hathaway. You got to ask Deanna Hathaway for that.
Then we'll match.
So, yes.
Contrary to if you can see me and you're watching this, I am actually Mexican.
Yes.
I don't know.
Don't panic. We're Hispanic. Yes.
My dad is Irish German, so I got daddy's skin.
Yeah. I'm so thankful. Right in the middle. My brother's got a very dark complexion.
I don't know what it is about my treatment too. I am significantly whiter in the past 2 years, so I don't know if it's
like
making me
pigmentation thing.
Iron deficient or something, but
I think you look great.
Thanks.
Yeah. So
thanks so much.
Anything else you want to share with the folks she's going to be back Because as I told you guys, I got a squad now that are gonna share their
Any
knowledge.
specific questions you have?
What do you love about me?
The answers are endless.
Thank you. See, I appreciate that. Where can people find you?
People can find me on Instagram and TikTok. Instagram is jordan.trapp with 3 P's. TikTok is the same, but that's more for the baldies. It has nothing to do about education.
Gotta follow it though. So explain. So I think you actually should tell a little bit of your story. We didn't even talk about that.
Oh,
Like,
yeah.
if you're still here, meet my guest.
So I have dealt with alopecia since I think my mom and I tracked it back to 20 is when I got diagnosed. Alopecia areata is what I was initially diagnosed with. And that was losing little like quarter size spaces all around my head. Dealt with that for about 3 years. At its worst, I had lost probably half of my hair, but it was all on this backside, so I could always hide it. My hair used to be super thick.
And you would do extensions, I
would do
remember.
extensions, and I was doing cortisone injections, which kind of fended it off. Then everything kind of corrected itself while I was in medical school, which was wild because that was probably the most stressful time of my life.
Right.
And then started getting some spots in residency. Post-residency, I got diagnosed with chronic myeloid leukemia. That was 2023. Treatment was not supposed to cause any hair loss. And then about a year into treatment, I was in the midst of leaving a practice. I was dealing with some things about leaving that practice.
Yes.
I was dealing with a relationship breakup, a friendship breakup, and my hair just started to kind of purge. I lost it all probably in a matter of 3 months? 3 months,
It
probably
was
start
so
to finish.
rapid.
It was terrifying. My hairline just kind of moved all the way back. And then one night I was just sitting at Postino's with my best friend, and I said, let's go get a razor.
Yeah.
It's time.
Yeah. Well, and I think, just seeing where you were like really like it dimmed your light when you're going through that.
Absolutely.
And now it's back and it's better than ever.
I honestly feel that, again, I'm not ever going to be grateful or thankful that this was a challenge that was given to me, but I absolutely sit back and think about how much it has changed my life and who I am as a person, and I will forever be grateful for this point in my life.
Yeah.
We're not announcing it yet, but there's some changes happening in my life. And
we're big on change around here lately.
I think that this honestly was part of the driving factor in giving me the confidence to do that. So
awesome.
Yeah.
We'll see, guys. No matter what is going on, we can find a positive, and most likely you're gonna look at that thing and be like, oh shit, I had to go through that to get to here.
100%.
That's what I talk about. You got to go through the process to get to the promise. Awesome. Well, if you aren't already, make sure to give Dr. Trapp, Jordan, a follow. Her Instagram is great. I'm not a bald girly, but I watch everything she does. And you've got a bit of a following.
I do.
Yeah, a little crew.
It's gotten great.
We should name them.
Jordan's Baldies. I don't know. We'll think.
No, I'm going to get. We're gonna
do better.
Yeah.
My TikTok is all bald content and cancer content. One time I posted about being a doctor, and they really, really didn't like that over there on TikTok. They don't love the naturopaths.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna stay away from that for now.
I've just learned, just let it go,
My Instagram is all educational as far as hormones, gut health, and
all the things. Good. Well, if you guys enjoyed this conversation, or you feel like maybe you just have that friend who's going to that one doctor who's kind of loony and doesn't know what they're doing, make sure to send this to them. If you haven't already, whether you're listening to this on Apple Podcasts or Spotify, hit that follow button. If you're watching on YouTube, subscribe to our channel and hit that notification button so you never miss this amazing content. Don't forget about our comment contest. We're giving away a bundle of Legion Athletics supplements, For those of you who comment, you're going to get a raffle ticket into our contest. So comment away, positive comments, be appropriate. And other than that, I will start feeding you guys information on the new program, The Mindset of Menopause. So look out for that. And I'm going to leave you the same way I do every week. What you say in your mind, you see in the mirror. Bye-bye.